Joining us by remote control, so to speak, is Erez Goldman in Tarzana, California, near Los Angeles. Erez worked with the current Minister of Development, I believe, Uzi Landau?
Yes, that's correct.
He was one of his assistants, one of his advisors here in Israel for a period of time. And before that, at the Haifa Technion, he was the head of the Students Association. And now that Erez is working in the United States, we'd like to get a fresh view from there about the two aspects of American life. The first one, of course, is the State of the Union address by President Obama. I wonder how it went over. What can you tell us about that?
Well, everyone was looking to see if he's going to shift his rhetoric and try to pull a Bill Clinton and go more to the center, which, in retrospect, it doesn't look like he did. He's definitely in trouble. You feel that he's in trouble. There's issues he did not. It was a 70-minute speech, so it was a very, very long State of the Union, which many issues he barely dealt with, including terrorism, because he's in the bind on that one, especially with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Gitmo, and what happened with the Christmas Day bomber. So he's on very, very shaky ground on that issue. Healthcare, he's in very much trouble because what he tried to do is he tries to blame the Republicans, but he can't. He's a president who has a supermajority in the Senate.
Well, we'll come back to the health care when we talk about the Massachusetts vote, because that dealt it a very damaging blow. But let's talk about other things that he didn't talk about, such as Afghanistan.
I don't think he has much news. He doesn't have much news on a progress on the war on terror. It's not looking very good.
But being the leader of the nation, he has to convey resolve. He has to convey leadership, don't you think so?
I agree with you 100%. The question is, can he?
Well,
and I don't think this State of the Union came at probably the worst time for him. I think it was scheduled before all these blows that have come in, that have been building up for a while, and it just hit him right before the State of the Union, including the election in Massachusetts, included the Christmas Day bombing, and it just instilled doubt in, I'd say, most of America on, is this guy able to deal with these issues?
But Erez, you know better than I that President Obama has a very strong team working with him, and they knew very well that, like it or not, convenient or not, the State of the Union address would have to be made to the joint session of Congress, as it always is every year by every president of the United States. And so they could have at least set the stage for the speech, worked on the assumption that no matter how the president feels, or no matter what the situation may be, he's got to say something, and it's got to go over well. How come they didn't set him up properly for it?
It's difficult. Look, if you look at the first 5 minutes of the speech, Jay, the first 5 minutes is... And that's where I was surprised, because I was sure they're going to keep it very short, and he's going to be unifying and kind of winking towards the other side and into the independent vote that's kind of neglecting him right now. If you look at the first 5 minutes, he talks about the strength of the American people, how they've endured times like the Great Depression and the Civil Rights Movement and World War II. And that's where I thought he was going. Basically, what you're saying is, okay, they sat down, they rewrote the speech, and now they're going to talk about the endurance of the American people and how he's going to lead them through these hard times. But he went on for 70 minutes bringing up issues that were just ready to bite him right after on all the discussion panels and radio the next day and, the major news networks. So, I mean, if you're looking for me to kind of defend on what he was doing, it's very difficult, not just for me, I'm sure for them as well.
If you remember, Jay, a year ago when he was just nominated, Barack Obama, I said on your show, I actually quoted an article that was written by a British analyst published in the Times of London, where it was written, look, President Carter was elected and he was one of the most popular presidents ever to be enter the White House. A year later, he was one of the weakest. His popularity plummeted completely. And the analyst in that article said, wait a minute and see what happens with Obama. Lo and behold, this is exactly what happened to Obama, despite the fact that he had still, until recently, a full control of both houses, which is something which Carter did not enjoy. And now my greatest fear, and I reiterate the same thing, is that out of his weakness, Obama will turn 180% to prove that he is a reliable president, and this can lead to a process of aggression that will be out of control.
Erez, though, I'm sure you'll agree that the president may have shifted gears in that State of the Union speech. Instead of going into health reform, he went into the issue that really matters most to most Americans, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that is unemployment and the lack of jobs for the people who've lost them. What do you think of his approach to joblessness in that State of the Union speech?
Well, first, if it's okay, I want to comment on what Yitzhak said before we move on to the economic side of it. It's a very, very good description when Yitzhak uses Jimmy Carter as a reference. People need to understand there's a reason for why Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama are in such disarray, especially with the numbers falling in the first year. America is a center-right country. Always was, and in my opinion, always will be. I'm experiencing it probably for the first time in my adult life, and I'm overwhelmed by it. It's like waking up a giant that just went to sleep, was sick of the last 8 years, got a very left-wing president, probably didn't know how left-wing he was, and right now is rejecting because the reality in the world is it just can't last. America is on top center of every major issue in the world. It is a major target. It has to deal with economic policies, and now we're going to slide into your question. So of course, he lost. Now, the question is, can he pull a Bill Clinton or not? It doesn't look like he is. He dealt with the economic issues, again, in a very, if you listen to the rhetoric, it's a very class warfare dialect that he uses.
That's very interesting.
They're the bad, we're the good, the banks, the rich.
That's right.
He's trying that class warfare. I don't think it's going to hold water in the long term because Americans realize it needs corporations, it needs innovation, it needs companies to invent how to move you around, use energy, and I don't know. I'm not very optimistic about.
Not optimistic, but you seem to become pessimistic even before the State of the Union speech, and I'm referring to your reaction to the election in Massachusetts when the Democrats lost the majority they had before the Republican victory. How do you explain that phenomenon?
How do I explain
the fact that it turned out that way?
Republicans winning the most liberal state in America.
Exactly.
Again, when you emphasize a liberal agenda, America rejects it. And having a president pushing down a health care reform, I mean, he could stand and he could blame the Republicans all he wants. And I'm not here, to defend the Republicans, but, the Americans aren't that stupid. He has a supermajority in the Senate. He has, I don't know, I'm sure you know, I think it's like a 40 or 50 seat advantage in Congress, and he can't pass healthcare reform. And you could stand and blame the Republicans all you want, but you could stick him in a can and shove him underneath the kitchen sink, and they don't matter.
Okay, Erez, we're going to cut it right here, and thank you very much.